Hey everyone, welcome back to my setting. It's been a while. Unfortunately, I had a few deaths in the family in a span of a short time, and I was just away. But the good news is that I'm back, and Wheel of Time is here. And I just watched the first episode of the Amazon TV show, the adaptation, and I would just like to chat a bit about it, review it, express my opinions, admirations, criticisms about it. Overall, episode 1. Well, there's a number of changes that happened in this episode, and I agree with most of them. I think they were for a purpose. So let's start. Well, first of all, the thing that surprised me was the explicitness about the Taviran phenomenon. The first scene, which is like a cold open, with very nice cinematography, I must say. The cinematography overall in this TV show is really a big plus. Portrays a male channeler, presumably running from the Red Aes Sedai, Red Aja Aes Sedai, because, well, he's a male channeler and they want to put him down. And there's this overhead pan to the mountain above, where Lan and Moraine are observing this because they are looking for the next Dragon Reborn, and this one wasn't it. And one of the first things they say to each other is that they should go to Two Rivers because there are rumors about 4 Taviran there. That's not something that's so explicit and so sudden in the books. In the books, the concept of Taviran and the realization that there are more than one Taviran is something that sets in gradually in the first book, but still not like in a prologue. And speaking of prologues, there isn't the infamous Iliena Prolog here, and I think that's a good thing. I honestly think it's a good thing because if you read the books, you know how important it is, but for a novice watcher and enjoyer of the TV show who is unfamiliar with the books, I think it would be too much front loading at the very beginning. It would shift the focus from the characters to exposition, because the prologue, as awesome as it is pure exposition and foreshadowing. And I think the showrunner did a very smart thing with omitting this prologue and focusing squarely on characters and their relationships. And I think that's a big plus. And there are some subtle things in world building that I think are also explicit, a part of the Taviran being, well, in the open, the concept of them. It's not explained, but it's said out loud. We have these shots of overgrown skyscrapers, or rather they remind of skyscrapers, which is a rather explicit hint that the world of Wheel of Time is cyclical and it's not stuck in the same era. And it was a bit, tiny bit on your nose, but I liked it because the shot did not linger on it. And overall, the costuming and the cinematography doesn't relay the stereotypical medieval fantasy setting with European influence, because that's not Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time is, if anything, early Renaissance, pre-Industrial Revolution sort of world. And I hope as we progress and see other locations and other cultures, which is of course the strength of Robert Jordan, we see more of the incredible distinctiveness of other cultures and peoples in the series. Another thing that I enjoyed are the characters. I think the acting is really good, which makes me even more sad because I found out that the actor portraying Matt is leaving the series and his character is going to be recast for season 2, and that's a shame because I think he is the best out of the trio. Not to say that Rand is bad or that Perrin is bad, no, they're all great, but I think Matt was pitch perfect and he really held his own when it came to acting and interacting with other much more seasoned character actors. Because, for example, the character of Tam, Rand's father, right? Excellent actor. But the thing that a bit kind of put me off is his accent and Rand's accent does not add up. It's too different from one each other. So you see them interact and act off another, and they're great, and the chemistry is there. But the accent, as soon as Rand opened his mouth, in contrast to Tam, it was like, oh, these are actors, not characters. It kind of got me out of the scene a bit. But it's not a big minus, it's not a huge flaw, but it is something that I noticed. Another thing that's neither good or bad, it's just different from the book, is Moraine entering Emond's Field very openly under identity of Aes Sedai. In the books, if I remember correctly, in the first book, her entrance to Emond's Field is a bit more low-key, understated, and here she just barges in, flaunts her Aes Sedai finger, and everyone knows who she is and what does she do, where she comes from. But then again, the explicitness of that, I think, works in tandem with Nynaeve's character, which book-wise is my favorite character. Out of all characters in Wheel of Time, Nynaeve is my favorite. And I'm happy to see that the actress they got for Nynaeve is like pitch perfect as I imagined her to be. And with a huge backbone and telling off Moraine. And I really enjoyed the interaction between Nynaeve and Moraine, because as Moraine entered Two Rivers under no pretense, just being Aes Sedai, so did Nynaeve reveal her not prejudice but stance on Aes Sedai, because her mentor wanted to become Aes Sedai and was presumably turned away because of her lowly status or something, at least according to Nynaeve. So Nynaeve is great. Egwene is good. It's much more flirty. She is much more flirty. Two of them are much more of a couple in the series, even though we know almost immediately they're doomed to fail as a couple. But in the books, they're kind of semi-engaged, promised to each other. And here it's like they are a couple, but she chooses to become a wisdom. And a wisdom does not marry, have children, and so forth. So I don't see much bitterness between them. It came off quite a bit more mature than in the books, the relationship between them at the start. Yeah, Nynaeve was great. I mean, the scene where Nynaeve just shanks a Trolloc like a boss with a knife really showed her character, her shielding other people and just going into the fray. Same with Matt. I mean, Matt, it's really a shame that he's out of the series, because his interaction with Padan Fain, and Padan Fain, another excellent character actor, I think that was a good selection, and the looks he gives to his father and to his mother, especially when he rescues his sisters, so much behind of it, and I really appreciated that. There are things that I was not so fond of. The parents' relationship with another character, Layla. I believe they're married here in the series, right? I seem to recall Layla, or Lila was she, a different character. Maybe it's a composite character from the books, but she was not close to Perrin in the books, and they certainly weren't a couple. And here, I think the choice they made with Perrin might put him on a completely different trajectory from the book Perrin. At this point, I'm not too fond of it, but then again, this is just the first episode, so who knows. What I'm trying to say is, Perrin in the books is very sheltered when it comes to relationships, romantic ones with women. Both Matt and Rand had much more, success or just experience with dating. And Perrin being the married one and losing a woman he loves and killing her on accident is bound to leave a traumatic mark on him. And once he enters, spoilers alert of course, marriage with Fail, which is another imbalanced relationship, it's going to be strange, because in the books he marries quite young for a younger person than he is, and that dynamic is very distinct, and I don't think it's going to be the same if the shadow of his lost, deceased lover looms over him. And overall, I have to say I really enjoyed the series. Music is excellent. I am very impressed with the soundtrack. It's nothing like I imagined, nothing like I composed in the past, of course, because I'm just a hack. But in terms of influences and textures, it blended quite nicely. You can't really pinpoint and say, oh, this is one singular influence that this composer was drawing from. No, you cannot pinpoint and pigeonhole the music. And I'm just happy that the world on the screen is colorful and distinct and full of light, because I do think the television and movies were predominantly dour, and especially when it comes to fantasy, which, there is time and place to portray gritty, washed out fantasy locations, but it doesn't have to be the norm. And I'm glad, at least in Wheel of Time sense, it's not. Overall, I'm actually really happy. I haven't felt this good about adaptation since Expanse was brought over to Amazon. A few recent adaptations on TV were quite disappointing. I mean, The Stand adaptation, the newest one, was disappointing to me. Why the Last Man was not always, but also disappointing. And I'm happy to say that this is good, and I hope it maintains this quality. We'll see how it's going to go once they leave to River. So that's about it from me. I'm very grateful for my Patreon supporters. Thank you very much for supporting me while I was gone, and thank you everyone else for watching me. Please do subscribe and leave a comment if you disagree with anything I said, or want to just chat. And more reviews coming soon, more content coming soon, and it's good to be back. Bye bye.